Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. I'm trying to catch up a bit for not having made that many podcasts this past week, and most of it was due to the issues that I brought up in the previous episode. And I don't think that I will try to overdo it. There's no point in making videos for their own sake, but I will try to mention some things that I thought that I should have mentioned, but did not really have the time. Maoism, third worldism, is love. Maoism, third worldism, is love. The only reason why I personally am a Maoism, third worldist rather, is because I love the third world. And I love the fourth world. And I like some parts of the first world. But I couldn't say I love them. Not really. But I certainly love the poor of the earth, the needy of the earth, the oppressed people of the world, the people who are, for example, suffering right now in Gaza and suffering needlessly. There is no reason for the suffering of those poor innocent souls in Palestine. They are, as I have said before, the indigenous inhabitants of the Holy Land. The Israelis, with some exceptions, are not. They are colonialists. They are invaders, much as the Europeans who migrated to what is now the United States and Canada were also invaders. There were people living in what is now the US and Canada before the Europeans arrived. And the Europeans basically showed virtually no compassion, no love, no understanding for the traditions and ways of people in North America, at times forbidding people from speaking their indigenous languages, moving them out of their own tribal lands, attempting to make them assimilate into the dominant white European culture. All really horrendous things that we have every reason, speaking as an American, as Americans, to regret and to be angry at and to be apologetic for. Thus, when I travel around the world, which I have not done as much as I would have liked, but some, when I say that I am from the US, I will frequently accompany that with an apology. And people are often startled. When I go down to Mexico, which, as regular viewers of this podcast know, is only 2 miles away from me, I will also go into stores and apologize to the Mexicans in those stores because I know the corruption and the poverty that exists in Mexico, and that the US, that NATO, that the EU, whatever, could, if it wanted to, alleviate those problems. I mean, there is a multinational force which is supporting Ukraine in fighting Russia. Why is there no multinational force defending Mexico? Supporting Ukraine is fine, I guess. Supporting Russia is also fine, I guess. But I care primarily, because of where I live, about the Mexicans. They don't get any support. The US is not trying to stamp out the cartels. It is tragic. And there are members of these cartels who live right near me, right here in Mission, Texas. They are here primarily to serve as receivers for the drugs that come through the tunnels from Mexico, and then to distribute them throughout North America and perhaps beyond. Meanwhile, within Mexico, those same cartel members are terrorists. They terrorize the residents of Mexico. There is no real police force or police forces in Mexico because the police are effectively owned by the cartels. Sadly, that is also true right here on this side of the Rio Grande Valley in the United States. Every month, there is a list of U.S. Border Patrol agents who have been arrested for taking payola from the cartels. Why? To look the other way. Meanwhile, people's lives in Mexico are a disaster. Had a discussion, which I mentioned several months ago here, with a Mexican guy that I met at a fair right next door in McAllen, Texas, at the convention center, the Performing Arts Center complex. And I asked him, I guess, what could be seen as a stupid question, but I wanted to get his response because I had never actually asked this question before. So I said, do you like living in Mexico? And his response was, no, it is very dangerous. Yes, there are Mexican Americans who were born in Mexico, who have relatives still living in Mexico, maybe only a mile away from where they are. And they have not been back to Mexico in 20 or 30 years. Now, their relatives from Mexico will sometimes come into the United States, but they are terrified of going into Mexico. The part of Mexico that I go to is safe. It is a tourist town. I could take a bus or a cab into Reynosa, Mexico, or other parts of Mexico. I could, but if I did, I might be killed. In fact, there is a reasonable chance. What that chance is, I have no idea. But there is a reasonable chance I could be killed as well. So most Americans don't go there. That is another reason why I love the third world, because my heart breaks for it. Why am I, a multimillionaire, living here in deep South Texas, and right around the corner from me, right here in Texas, are people who are struggling with poverty? But the poverty in Mexico is generally much worse. And they are only a few miles away from me too. So living here is a mixed blessing. I like the climate. I hate the corruption, which is pretty universal here in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, but not as bad as the corruption on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande Valley. Yet it is still corruption. There are people who are trying to make a buck, and they don't care who they have to hurt to do it. I have seen people's lives ruined here by corruption. People killed because of corruption. It is not something that I enjoy. So when I say it is a mixed blessing, the climate is nice. It's the same climate here as in Honolulu, Hawaii. Miami, although at the same latitude as us, is slightly warmer, but Honolulu is exactly the same as we are in temperature. So it is as if I am living in Honolulu, as if. A lot of poverty in Honolulu too, especially among Native Hawaiians. Those Native Hawaiians are in the fourth world. They are indigenous people in Hawaii, and they are the ones who suffer, while the Europeans and North Americans who migrated there, and there are a lot of them, are generally quite well-to-do. Same thing is true where I am. Most of the people that locals call Anglos, even though I am not technically an Anglo as an Ashkenazi Jew, but the people who are technically Anglos here, which I guess includes me, are generally quite well off. Maybe not as well off as me, but a lot better off than some people I know who live right near me. So I love the third world. I love the fourth world right here in Hidalgo County, Texas. They have all the heart in the world. Sometimes I feel like I have none, and other times I feel like my heart is breaking over them. Maybe those are both true, even though superficially they may sound contradictory. The only reason, in my opinion, for becoming a Maoist third worldist, or as I sometimes call it, a socialist from below, third worldist, fourth worldist, either way, the only reason for being one is love. Is love. If one does not love the people of the third world and of the fourth world, then why bother? I care about those people. I have always cared about them since 1968, when I was in the New Left and my organization was working in solidarity with Cesar Chavez and the Migrant Workers Union, trying to get better wages for those migrant workers. Were we successful? No. The problem now is worse than it was back then. But we love them. We loved them. We cared for them. Maybe not me as an autistic. I was concerned. I was upset about the massive injustice. I guess I could not really love them at that time, but now I do. In retrospect, I feel enormous love for those migrant workers I tried, however, unsuccessfully to help back in 1968 and 1969. And that was the beginning of my love with third worldism. And now it has exploded. My second time as a Maoist third worldist, when it should only have been my first, meaning I should never have left it and had to re-affiliate with it. I should have stayed a Maoist third worldist, but I was misled by false hope, by hope that perhaps there could be revolutions here in the US. That hope was a result of my observation of 9/11. But 9/11 did nothing except make the United States even more reactionary than it was before. Not revolutionary at all, but purely reactionary. It started two wars, and wars against whom? Against two third world and fourth world countries, Iraq and Afghanistan. And why? Greed, power, money. I don't know. Not love. There was no love. You don't love people and bomb them. You don't. You try to help them and find ways to do that, but you don't go to a country that you love and kill those people. Russia does not love Ukraine. If it is bombing and killing Ukrainians, no, it does not love Ukraine. I'm not taking sides in that war. I don't think there are any good sides. There is evil and corruption on both sides, but I don't see any love either. And that is what we need. That is why Maoism, third worldism, to me, is the only tendency of communism that I could, in good conscience, become affiliated with in these, the winter years of my life. For the time being, this has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.